Welcome to this week's Fireside Chat with Jesse. I am joined today by Brylee VP of Credit at Priority Capital Partners. Thanks for joining me, Brylee.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. I know all the folks who you've had on preceding me, so I am grateful for this opportunity.
Well, excellent. I appreciate your time, and I'm excited to learn more about you and your career to date in equipment finance, Brylee. So I guess we'll kind of jump right off here. For those people who haven't had the privilege of meeting you, do you mind just kind of introducing yourself and your career to date in equipment finance?
Yeah, of course. So it's funny, when we first connected to discuss organizing this, I thought this is like such fortuitous timing, because I think this month, if not this week, literally marks the 20th year since I started in equipment finance. So yeah, so I was like, oh, this is great. Wow, it's a mini celebration. So I first started like post-college grad, very green to the industry. And I started drafting docs and funding. And I was given the opportunity with a originator here in Scottsdale, Arizona. I was very lucky that it was an opportunity with a very thriving but smaller organization. So I got to wear lots of hats and be cross-trained on tons of stuff and be exposed to a lot of the features of our industry that otherwise you might not know if you're siloed into a certain position.
Sure.
So, but very readily, I really realized that credit was my jam. And so I quickly, immersed myself in all things underwriting and really tried to learn what that role and what that skill set entails. And so then it was like, syndications and, interfacing with lenders and all that stuff that I truly love continuing to do to this day. And so that was a continuation of my path for 17 years. And then with COVID, I made a formal switch over to Orion First, which I know you're familiar with as well. And they are more on the servicing side. So that was kind of cool, because I got to be exposed to the back end of our industry, and put all of that front end foundation to a little bit of the back end experience. So I did that. I had less external interfacing. And so after being there for a while, great organization, great people, really just had the bug to go back to what I loved doing from the beginning. And
Sure.
So I was very, very lucky to connect with Priority Capital and kind of return to that front end interaction and having to work with a sales team and having that type of rapport with them and being that conduit between, an internal sales team and the external parties like the lending partners, what have you. And so in the late part of the summer of 2022, made that transition with Priority Capital, and the rest is history. And here I
am. Excellent. Well, thank you for that.
Did we run out of
time? No, I appreciate. No, that's very short-winded.
Okay.
We get some people that they like to talk, and I'm like, oh, okay, keep going.
Yeah, we're rolling.
Yeah. But no, thank you for that intro. And 20 years. So this is my 19th year. So do I round up to say it's 20? But then after 20, I'm not going to go up after that. Like, no.
It's funny. Time flies when you're having fun, I guess, because I think of the number 20 and I'm like, wow, that's a big number. But then I also at the same, thought, I look at all the people that, you and I both know, and that you grow those relationships over the years. And it's like, yeah, it does feel like 20 years in a good way. Right. So it's interesting too, because I've oftentimes, like, even recently thought, I'm like, man, it's so exciting if you're just entering this industry. Like, it's so exciting and thriving and viable. And there's so many cool things going on. But then I'm like, no, I would never give up all the things I've done over the past 20 years professionally.
Sure.
It's such great building blocks. It's like an encyclopedia in your brain of all the things that you've seen and accomplished and been privy to. And, so it's good to look back, but I still don't feel like I have a lot going on still to come. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I'm like 20 years in. My liver's like, are you sure it's only 20? uh, that's great. Do you mind just kind of introducing Priority Capital Partners?
Absolutely, yeah. So Priority is a really mighty origination company based just outside of Boston. They have been operating for 27 years, which is pretty impressive in itself. Steve McCabe is our CEO. We have a very robust internal sales team, a highly experienced ops group. Our internal credit team is obviously a part of that operations
Sure.
division. And that's something that we're very proud of because, the fact that we pre-underwrite and have those pre-qualification steps internally, I think speaks to the success and the volume and the efficiencies within that volume that we're very proud of. I should also mention that there's leadership and sales folks and operations personnel who have been there, upwards of 2 decades. So I think that's something that we can toot our horn about as well. To kind of get back to what we do transactionally, we are a generalist in terms of industries and equipment types that we'll fund. We will fund any industry from A to Z. Same goes for equipment on a national level. We have a strong foothold in franchise concepts, both on the foods and the fitness side, and you name it, commercial vehicles, technology, IT, medical, construction. I mean, we really run the gamut. And then, of course, working capital has been a huge component to our sustained success. So that's an exciting thing that we continue to do well in as well. And then I should probably also mention that our model is based on, repeat business, vendor referred, and user direct. So like I said, we really do run the gamut, and that's something that we're not only excited about because there's tremendous opportunity currently and in the future, and we can just keep building there. Ticket size, we will do very comfortably app only up to 350, but we can certainly do up to 500 for qualifying borrowers, and we absolutely do larger mid-ticket transactions as well. And then, just in closing, looking back, since we are in the first part of the year, in 2023 alone, we funded over $210 million. So that's something that we're pleased with and are looking to grow as well.
Perfect. And you're out here in Arizona with me. They're in Boston.
Yes.
How is that transition?
You know what? I think I think COVID was a good training wheel in that regard. Like I
Sure.
became very comfortable interfacing with internal and external folks through avenues like this that we're doing right now. And I'm a big proponent of connecting with my group over video and constantly on the phone and through internal chat mechanisms. So we have a very open method of communication in that way. And thankfully for me, I get to go out there every 2 to 3 months and pay everybody a visit. And it's great to see them. It's like a nice little reunion. And we touch base and we connect. And in fact, I'm going out there next week. So I'll have to face the cold, but
I was going to say, if you're going out there for quarterly meetings, it's what, 331 June, July, August. That's it.
Yes, that is yes. What am I thinking? Although what's crazy is I was looking at their weather and ours today, and it's like a 5-degree difference. So what are we doing here in Arizona? It's very cold.
I don't know. I mean, I'm from the East Coast originally, New York, so Boston, like, but I always seem to find myself in like Buffalo in December or January. It's not like I'm going to Florida, so it's just whatever. My own problems, I guess.
Hey, we're all doing it. We're all traveling. No biggie.
And I would think from a credit perspective, if I'm sure you guys are all over the country,
Mhm.
but having someone checking credit that's potentially 2 to 3 hours behind would be advantageous to a salesperson.
You know what? They are lucky because let me tell you. No, I'm just kidding. So you know, as a company, I deliberately start with them on East Coast time to make sure that we are attending to sales needs if something has to be escalated or what have you, or addressed. Um, but because of my personality, I would be lying to say that I don't work West Coast hours too. Because I love a clean slate and starting fresh the next day. You know, I don't like thinking about deals and waking up in the middle of the night. So I think it's the best of both worlds, and you know what, they're really good to me, so it makes it an easy ask, and they don't ask me to do that, but I happily rise early to start the day.
Oh, that would be so much fun to have. I'd be like, okay, is she going to answer this one right now? Good.
Yeah. Let's see here.
Yeah, right. Until she says stop, I'm going to keep going. So let's, I guess, from a credit perspective, you're obviously very passionate about that particular segment of an equipment finance organization. What drives that passion, Brylee?
You know, I think I love I love putting together like a great deal and a logical deal. I'm big on logic and reason. Um, you know, I like having crafting conversations around examples and not just, you know, an emotional response. And so I hate cringy things. If I have a typographical error or something in my write-up, you know, I am all about that. And so I really strive over the years, like, you know, we can talk about it further. I won't get into it now, but I just think it's so important to like know what you're talking about and develop those skills and that underwriting acumen, you know, across
Sure.
the board before you know, you can really be the most really put together difficult transactions that might be out of the box, let's say. And
Sure.
those do come up and they are worthy and they are good deals to get done. But sometimes you just have to look at what does 1 + 2, you know, +3, and so on, so on forth. What is it going to take for us to put this together behind with the logic, you know? And
Sure.
so I think sometimes probably when I get involved in a deal, people are like, oh my gosh, here we go. I have to read through 6 paragraphs is what she's going to tell me, but there's a reason.
Hey, there's a reason.
And, you know, and I like to draw evidence and what have you and make a case. And I think that really speaks to what we're here to do ultimately, which is to help small business succeed, right? At the core of it. And how I kind of tap into that important component of our day-to-day is by making sure that no deal gets left behind in a positive light, right? And so that is something that I'm passionate about, and I absolutely cringe, Jesse, when we can't get a deal done, because I think about, you know, the end user and the vendor and what have you, and those relationships. And
Sure.
but if they can't get done, they can't get done. And I know that we've given it our best shot, and that we have to lean on what's the best approach for everybody.
Well, and someone who's been in business development pretty much his entire career, I appreciate that. But I'm sure I don't know, like it's going to sound corny, but like attorneys have case law. I'm sure you have something where it's like, we've been down this road before and it hasn't really worked out. Because you can pretty much tell 95 to 99% of the time where it's like, is this going to be, this is not really going to be good. And then you have someone like me pushing, saying, oh, come on, it's great.
Well, and that is what's kind of fun, is like that gas and the brake pedal in this role. And I'm big on setting expectation too, just internally. You know, I think that's important. Is we can't promise the moon, and but what we can do is just do our best, and you know, set expectation appropriately so they can then relay that to the vendor relationship and relay that to the end user and the borrower. it just allows it to not compound so much by the time, we do get to a yes or a no, and hopefully things are going in the right direction at that point.
Oh, and thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna shift a little bit. So being in the industry for 20 years, kind of trade organizations, industry relationships, kind of how has that helped your career, Brylee, and why is it important to people to take part in industry activities?
Mhm. So, I mean, very quickly, I want to touch like just on the CLFP. I think that's a, a great representation of our community. I really
Sure.
love the folks over there. They've been great proponents of the professional behaviors that we should adhere to. So I think that's really cool that we have that. And truth be told, I didn't even pursue my CLFP until like 3 years ago. And at that point I was like, oh, I better pass.
I still don't have it, and Reed makes me aware of that every time I see her, and I'm like, come on.
Yes, I get it. I honestly it was more of a pride intimidation thing for me. But
Sure.
thankfully I passed, and I'm really grateful that I did. And I appreciate, what they do again for their oversight and what have you. And then of course NIFA. I love the NIFA community. I have been attending those conventions for a very long time, and we participated a little bit in some ELFA capability. Started attending actually the NIFA Women in Leasing luncheon many years ago, at the urging of Cindy Fleck, who I respect tremendously. And she said, "Oh, you should attend this. It's a great experience." And at that time, it was actually quite small, considering what it has evolved into today. And so I attended, and I had a wonderful time. It's really nice to have that first gathering of sorts with that
Sure.
group. And it's pretty remarkable how much it's grown exponentially. I mean, through the years, Sherry and Stephanie should be very proud of what they've done there. And I would even take this venue to urge any women in our community to attend that. They do go to the symposium, what have you, because it's a very fun experience. And then just kind of to further go into that a little bit, I more recently joined the Women in Leasing Committee that's associated with NIFA. And so I'm just kind of getting started there, but I love it because it's just another touch point to engage with that same group. And then this is actually a very topical question, because in the spirit of it being the new year and setting resolutions, Jesse, one of my goals is to become more involved in, NIFA and other relevant organizations to commercial finance. So maybe we can like append an epilogue to this episode, and you can say, did she follow up?
Perfect. I mean, it's online, so it's basically gospel at this point in time. So
there you go.
Sit there in like 5 months.
Yeah, my accountability buddy. What are you doing?
You don't want me being an accountability buddy. I'm the worst one ever.
On my becoming more involved goal. So I hope to report back that I have done so. And so yeah, that is something I'm excited about. And to be perfectly honest, someone who, not to talk about myself, but someone who has been in the industry as long, I should absolutely be doing that. So I'm excited too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So when you took a step to being a service provider, and this is where I've only been a service provider. Some of my clients I have now are actually funding sources, so that's neat for me to learn that process.
Yeah.
But traditionally, I've only been a service provider. What was that like for a couple of years?
You know what? It was really great. So like going from originally being like originations, funding, underwriting, and that type of capacity, to have that background and the context was very cool going in onto the servicing side of things. I enjoyed my time with Orion. They're great people. And it really allowed me to see the inner workings on the back end and really understand more of the components that go into, portfolio insights and the collections group and all the efforts that are done on that side of the house. So that exposure was awesome. And, once again, going
Sure.
back to my career theme, it's like the wearing of the hats. And so it just afforded me another opportunity to look through another lens within our industry, of which there are many. So that was very cool. And then to go back, you know, I just needed to re-engage that former life of mine, because I truly missed, talking about professional development and how that relates to the folks and the relationships in our industry, that I truly missed that component and that joy that parts of my career had given me before. And I missed rolling up my sleeves and working on deals and having that external interface, and picking up the phone and talking to business development reps with the lenders. And Priority gave me that, going back to that other world of originations, they really gave me like a metaphorical homecoming to what I wanted to be doing, to what I was really good at, in terms of my skill set. So it was nice to, again, peer behind the curtain of servicing and be able to work with that great group, and then still be a part of the same community, so that I can not only revert back to what gives me the most professional reward, but then be able to grow with a great company like Priority, and still see all my past buddies at conventions and what have you. So I guess I have the best of both worlds.
Perfect. And then from a culture perspective, kudos to you for going out there, every 2 to 3 months. I think that's important, because you're investing your time and saying, hey, I'm a part of this team. A lot of people don't understand that. I've been a remote employee since 2010, so I get that whole. But from a culture perspective, is it a little bit of a struggle being not in their main office?
You know what? That is a great question. For me, no, and I don't think for them either. I think the reason why it was such a great fit, to be honest, they had never met me before we had started engaging about perhaps me going over there, and I think it was just, a personality fit. They were all hard workers. We like to see success. We champion each other's successes. And I think at the core of it, that's what matters to us. And so when we get together, it's perhaps like an old friend. When I return to the office, it's like, hey, how are you? It's like I just saw them yesterday, and we pick up right where we left off. And thankfully, technology has aided us in those types of things where we can pick up the phone or text, hey, how's it going, happy new year, that type of thing, those little things. But then there and again, it's a very close group out there, and they embraced me as the West Coaster employee, so to speak, and I'm grateful for it, because it's maybe it's a cultural thing with Priority in general, but I certainly don't feel like I'm an outlier here in Arizona by any means.
Yeah. But yeah, it's always one of those questions we ask, especially as traditionally this industry wants people in the office, and I think you make exceptions based on the person. I do believe office time is important.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, excellent. And I would say the same for the credit group that I work with, is that they're very dedicated individuals. And so when you have that type of group that you get to manage, it makes it a lot easier. You don't have to, by any means, employ any micromanaging techniques. They're there to do the work as well, and I'm here to help them. So, hello.
It's like, come on, dog. Can I get like 40 minutes of you leaving me alone? I guess not. Sorry.
No.
What advice would you give somebody just getting into the industry, Brylee?
Yeah, great question. For me, I think that it's really important, and I can only speak from my own experiences, I suppose, but for me, I think it's so important to listen and really learn from every deal and every question, and be really curious about what you're being told and ask why. Um, and not from by any means a combative style, like why, but just so you understand, because that was the biggest learning component for me when I was getting started, and first 5 years of knowing what's what, with how nuanced our industry can be. And, I would just raise my hand and say, hey, like, why is this the way it is? And why, just eliminate any vagueness or gray area. And really, because I mentioned having that encyclopedia up here, when we first started talking today. And I think that when you can keep building and developing that library, there are so many times I have drawn on past experiences and past deals, and cited guidelines from 10 years ago saying, hey, we used to do this. And
Yeah.
probably, yeah. So I think that is the biggest thing. I just to really know your stuff and want to know your stuff, to take pride in your work. When I again first started out, I would like read guidelines for hours upon hours, like during my own time and my lunch breaks and stuff, so that I would know the lender's guidelines backwards and forwards and could cite that. And I think that is important, because not only does it give you the wherewithal to be more efficient in your own practices, but it shows that you care. You care that enough when you're working with even the external parties, that, hey, I'm not just throwing stuff your way, or not doing something that we can't talk about conceptually or transactionally. This is something that is definitely feasible, and this is why. And so I am a huge proponent of knowing your stuff through and through. And I've seen a large, many times, like a large number of folk who come in with varying professional, educational backgrounds and skill sets and what have you. And I think the people who are truly the earnest learners and are really genuine about what we do and why we do it, they really have the most success. When you care about, from a credit analyst perspective, when you care about the deal that you're submitting, and the quality of product that you're sending to the lender or the bank, and saying, all my T's are crossed, all my I's are dotted, I'm going to make this as efficient as possible for both of us. I think that shows a lot of respect and care. And that would be my biggest two pieces of advice: is really know what you're talking about as best as you can. And when you don't know, study up and ask why.
Be humble and just sit there and say, you know what? I've learned that a lot in the last 12 months. People are like, oh, what do you think about this? I'm like, no. Now, granted, it doesn't happen very often, but in the scenarios when it does, I just learn. It's like, I'm not going to dig myself a hole. I don't really.
Yes.
I can't. I'm probably not the guy. I'm not the guy or girl for what you need right now. It's this. Yeah. No, not so much.
I agree. And I think that takes a lot of professional bravery. And honestly, I've been in instances where people who are much higher up in the world of professions than I am, and they go, that's a good question. I don't know. I'll have to look into it. And I'm like, yes, I have a great deal of respect for that answer, because I'd much rather hear that than, whatever.
Nah, and since I've taken that approach, my BS meter is at like full thing where I'm like, full of crap. Come on. Oh no, but thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So you attended the EF Cares event we had a couple months ago now in Scottsdale. I just kind of want to get your thoughts on that program, and what did you like? What could we be doing better in the future, Brylee?
Well, first of all, it was an awesome event, and I am going to give a huge shout out to Jamie Haber, who kindly extended the offer. And I was truly so excited to attend that, speaking of my trips back from Boston, I was flying back, jumped in a vehicle to get over to the event, and made it on time. So I was
For
stoked.
you.
Yes, I think I had left pretty early that morning on a plane, but I was very excited to go. And I have to say, like, the assembly of folks that were there, it's all the people, not all, but many of the folks that I recognize as being great connectors in our industry and people who have a lot of respect from others. So it was certainly an assembly of awesome people to begin with. And then just to have that first interaction at the beginning to where we can kind of discuss and mingle and greet. And then, obviously the important part of it too is the forum of having a showcasing and a platform to where nonprofit or worthy causes can be discussed that are very near and dear to, other whether it's businesses or individuals that are associated with our industry. And so to have that platform that sets the stage to talk about things like that was really impressive. And I think it leaves you with a great sense of pride that you're privy to that aspect of our world that's going on that, you yourself have organized. So great event, was very pleased to attend. And I hope I get to be a part of future ones as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I'm a big boy. So if there's things that I could be doing better, feel free. I can take it.
No, I had a great time. So I appreciate it.
All right. Perfect. So I ask everyone who comes on here to give me a little fun fact about themselves. So what makes you tick outside of, I guess, credit and equipment finance?
Yes. So, okay, maybe I'm really boring because I was like, what is a fun fact about me?
Hey, you mentioned Jacob Fall's interview earlier. Like, he had the best response ever. I'm a boring guy. I'm like, thanks, man.
Give me something. So I actually have twin daughters and a son. So, I was even asking my family, I'm like, what's a fun fact about me? Come on, guys, like, let me think of something. And they're like, we're twins. And I'm like, yeah, that is pretty cool. And, to connect it to my professional life, I think I literally missed a Christmas party because I went into labor. So many years ago, 17 years ago. So, so yeah, that will be my fun fact. And
so what was when were they born?
They were born in 2006. Yeah.
No. What was the date in December?
Oh, December 9th.
Okay. My Rory is December 20th. So
nice. December is a great month. Lots of cool people.
Just double up on Christmas presents. I get yelled at. You can't do that. I'm like, come on.
Wrap.
Yeah, right. She didn't open that one yet.
Yeah. Okay. So that's my fun fact. How about that?
So, and then how far back is your son?
So he is 12, and so he came a few years after. And yeah. So
he's just spoiled because he's not two girls at the same time.
Yes, he is. Yes, and he's a couple years younger. He's a couple years younger. So then, of course, he's the baby. So yes, of course.
Sure. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I guess just kind of in closing here, why should someone want to do business with Priority Capital?
I feel like I've said it 10 times during this call, but I'm happy to say it again. It's a great team. The leadership group really recognizes potential in the people that it works with, both from, I would say, an internal capacity, but also an external capacity. They are really passionate about the success of our industry. And from a performance perspective, it's really cool that Priority has really like cultivated a wide platform of finance solutions that we can offer our borrowers and solutions for our vendor network. And so for me in credit, that's a very exciting platform to operate within because, the sky's the limit. And so I think Priority's a wonderful example of an origination company within our organization because they have just developed this community of internal folks who are passionate about our industry, to say that one more time, and additionally, the external interfacing is there, because every time I talk to a lender, they absolutely love working with us. And so that is extremely rewarding as well, to know that you're a part of that group. And I hope that others feel that way too.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time, Brylee. It's always good seeing you.
Thank
And,
you.
you know, hopefully our paths cross in person sometime over the next few weeks, or definitely a few months.
Looking forward to it. Appreciate this. This is really fun.
All right. Well, you have a great day. Thank you very much.
Okay. Have a good one.
All right. Bye.